What is up, my dudes? Now you're probably thinking, wow, he hasn't released a video in, I don't know, 3 months or so. I've been busy. I'm getting married. For real, though. I'm getting married. So I've been a little bit busy. But we're going to start out a new video here. We're going to expand on our Node JWT video that we made last time. We're going to actually create a front end for it so we can actually kind of see how it works with a React front end. We're going to create a React app, and we'll go ahead and go into it. Now, if you've been looking at my code, which you probably haven't, I've had this up for a while. I just haven't had the time to make the video. But if you're here not from that video and you just kind of want to do it, I do have the ability for you to download the stuff from that video. So you'll just go to my GitHub. All these links will be down there, and I'll kind of give you a setup on what you need to do because I'm not going to run over it in this video. You're going to need to download this specific one. It's going to be under branch video example JWT. Master is ahead of this one. So make sure to download that, and I'll have some steps to set it up in the link down below, or in the thingy down below. So here we go. What are we first going to do? We're going to install Create React App. So you guys might have to bear with me sometimes because I've recently had to completely nuke my Hackintosh. I run on a Hackintosh. I don't run on an actual Mac. So I've had to completely kill my Hackintosh, and I'm basically, rebuilding my computer from the ashes, much like a phoenix. But so you might notice, if you've watched some of my stuff, you might notice some different stuff than usual. So we're going to go into our directory wherever we have it installed, or the project. I have it in example JWT here. So we're going to be in the base directory here, and basically all we're going to do is we're going to do create React app, and I'm just going to call it client. We're going to wait for that to install, and then I'll talk about my life because you got to sit here and listen to me anyway. So like I said, I've been a bit busy. I had to nuke my computer, and that's actually all that's gone on with my life. My life is actually really, really boring. So we're just going to cut to the end of the install. Now that that's out of the way, we can do exactly what they say. CD client. It's already got the node modules installed, which is kind of nice. So we can just run npm start. Now, one thing that we might have an issue with, oh, this is on the wrong one. So, that's a Create React app. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you guys because everyone always complains that my text is too small. Buy a 4K monitor. Just drop $600 on one, okay? Not really. Don't do that unless you need one. So what we've got here is just a standard React app. But one thing you might notice, we're running on port 3000. I think it's easier to change the port of our app itself. So you can see here I've already got my index.js open here. We'll close some of the tabs I was working on. So instead of 3000, we're just going to do port 5000. Why not? So that way these two aren't going to get in trouble with each other. But for now, we're just going to stick in the React portion of the application. So we can get everything kind of set up, and then we'll start making connections backwards to the application we have, or the API we have. So I'm going to go into WebStorm. As always, I use WebStorm. You can use anything. You can use Vim, VS Code, Sublime, Atom, whatever. It doesn't matter. Nothing I do will be super fancy. So now you can see here we have the default stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to delete all of it because it's pretty useless. Not quite all of it, but we are going to delete app.css, app.text.js, index.css, and logo.svg. And you can see I figured out how to zoom on Mac. So if you can't see those, now you can. So we're going to delete all of these. We don't care about safe search. It's one nice thing about WebStorm is it actually allows you to do all this, or it does all this for you. Like it'll say, oh, I can't find that anymore. All right, so if we reload this, we still can't find index.css. Okay, we'll close that as well. All right, cool. Welcome to React. We now have a logo. Who cares? So on this app.js, we're actually just going to delete everything in the render method except for the div, the top div. And then we are going to open up a new folder, and then we're going to call it components. That siren, if you can hear that siren in the background, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to get over it. someone's doing their duty as an officer. Can't get mad at that. All right, so we have components. So we're going to drag our app.js in here. I'm going to hit OK. Now, WebStorm takes care of my paths for me, so it automatically makes this components. Make sure to grab that if you don't have WebStorm or you're doing this with a different text editor. So next up, we are going to go into this app.js, and we're actually going to install some packages first. What we're going to install all the packages. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab of iTerm. If you need to stop your server to run, go ahead and go for it. So I'm going to install 2 dependencies. So we're going to install Axios, which is going to be our way of making requests back to our API, and then I'm going to install React Router DOM so we can do some routing. So I'm going to npm install --save Axios and React Router DOM. Cool. So next up, we are going to go into our app.js. I like to use my app.js as kind of as a route folder, basically. So the only thing that's going to exist here is my routes. So I'm going to import browser router, switch, and route, or not router or routes, from React Router DOM. What is it mad about? Oh, did it not install? It should have installed. Oh, whatever. It's not a big deal. And then we're going to go, and we're going to delete these 2 divs, and then we're going to do browser router. Ooh. And then we're going to do a switch. And then we're just going to do a basic route. Path is equal to / not router, route. I just can't get things right today. And we're going to say exact, and we're going to say component is equal to home. And we're going to make this home component here in a second. So all I've made is I've made a route. I've made a switch statement, a browser router, and a route. So a browser router will say that we want the browser to handle the routing with the regular URLs as opposed to like a hashed URL. Well, the switch statement says hit the first route and then stop. And then we have a route with a path of / and then it's exact. So nothing super special. We're going to go into components. We're going to create a new JavaScript file. And we're just going to call it home. So WebStorm is going to ask me stupid questions. And then I'm just going to say import React from React. Const home is equal to a fat arrow function. We're going to export default home. Now I know I went really fast over that. If you haven't done any React, I'm going to go a little fast over it because I've got some stuff on React, and this isn't really focused on learning how to do React. This is more focused on how to implement JWTs in React. So all we've done is made a fat arrow function, and then we're going to just return div, and we're just going to say hello world for now. So we're going to go back to app, and I'm going to go ahead and import this, not that. Import home from /home. Cool. So now that we have that, we are going to go back. I'm going to clear my server and then start it again just to make sure that, because we installed packages and stuff. So I want to make sure that we have those. So you can see now that we've rendered hello world onto the screen. Nice and cool. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to create a component to actually get our user and set the state of the user. So I'm going to kind of do an overview of how we would do this without something like global storage. That's probably not the best way, but I'm just going to do it in terms of time. A good way to do it would actually be able to use storage like Redux and store the user into a Redux storage so you have access to it in every component. But for this, it's the same concept. You're just introducing an extra layer of complexity that teaching is not going to be beneficial to you guys. So if you've seen my authentication piece in React with Firebase, I'm going to create a very similar component to that. So we're just going to go ahead and create it. We're going to new JavaScript file. I'm going to say authenticated component. And we're going to actually need a class-based component. So we're going to say import React, component from React. I need to learn how to type. We're going to say class authenticated component extends component. And we're going to export default that authenticated component. And then we're going to do a render. And all we're going to say, we're going to just return, for now, we're just going to return a cool, you got it, hello world. And then we're going to render this bad boy onto the screen. And then we're just going to, for now, we're just going to do a route with it. But I'll show you in a second what we're actually going to end up doing. So I'm going to say auth, and we'll say component is equal to, and we'll say auth. Actually, we'll use authenticated component because WebStorm is nice. Oh, I seem to have misspelled component. So I'm going to rename that really quickly so you guys don't get confused. Say authenticated component. Yeah, sure. All right, cool. WebStorm's nice and it did all that for me. So we're going to say /auth. And then we're going to do localhost 3000 /auth. Oh, I forgot my slash here. You need to put a slash there to make sure that the site shows up. So this is a different hello world. I'll show you just to prove it to you. We'll do hello world from auth. And there we go. We have hello world from auth, and we're at localhost 3000 /auth. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to start implementing logic to check for our JWT. One thing we need to do is we need to actually make requests to our API. So if I were to make a request, say I want to request to /get token. Well, if I were to see to /get token, that doesn't really help me because that's hosted on React. It would say I'm going to make a GET request to localhost 3000, but that's not where our service is running. It's running on localhost 5000. So we're going to go to the package.json. And React, thankfully, has this very nice thing called Proxy, which means that everything that we make external requests to that is not ourself, basically, if we make any external requests that's not routing or an initial GET request on the app, it's going to delegate those to whatever we say. So we're going to say proxy, and then we're going to open and close quotes, and then we're going to put a comma, and then we're going to say http://localhost:5000. So that way we can delegate all of our requests back. So now that we've got that, we're going to go back into our authenticated component, and we're going to have a constructor of props, and we're just going to say super props. Nothing too fancy. And we're going to actually have a state, and we're going to have our user. I seem to not be able to get that right today. And he's just going to be undefined to start with. Since I'm making him undefined, you could make the argument that I don't need to have this at all. I like to declare stuff even if I like to keep it undefined in the state so people kind of have an idea of what state's going to look like throughout the entire application. So now that we're about to get started, we're going to kind of run into a brick wall. Well, our brick wall is going to be the fact that we can't get our user. We don't have our JWT stored anywhere. Well, we'll create our login page really quickly, and we'll begin to see how we are actually storing that token. So we're going to just go to a new component. We're going to do a login component. Now this login is going to be super duper basic. It is going to have literally nothing more than just a form, labels, and password, or labels and buttons, and that is it. So it's not going to have any CSS. It's not going to look good, but hopefully you guys will understand what I'm going for. So we're going to say React component, because we're going to need to keep track of the state so we can actually make the request. Oh, I forgot my initials quote. We're going to say class login extends component export default login. If only I could spell correctly. We're going to have a constructor this time. It's going to have props in it. We're going to say super of props because you have to do that. And we're going to say this dot to email password. Now we're not going to handle the case of if you have an error because that's not necessary here, because this is not what I'm not trying to show off, you know, a whole login, log out. I'm just trying to show you authentication specifically. So we're going to have a render method, and I'm going to just return, and then we're just going to make a very quick form. We're not going to have it on submit quite yet. We'll do a label of email, and then we'll do a label of password, and then we'll have two inputs. And that should be pretty much everything we need in the form. So we're just going to have an input and a label, and that's all we're going to do. So these inputs are going to have a type of text, and this one's going to have a name of email. And we're going to implement an onChange method, and this onChange method is going to encapsulate everything. So we're just going to have a single onChange method. So we're going to say change. We're going to have an event get passed into it. We're going to say this.setState e.target.name e.target.value. Now, what this is doing is this is new ES6, and if you've never seen this, I'm going to kind of explain it. This is new ES6 syntax to say whatever is in this variable, make it the key. So if I were to send e.target.name as ABC, it would be ABC is the name of the property, and I would be able to say this.state.abc, which is useful for us, which means that we can have one onChange method and just have the names here, and then they will update our state as they are required. So our onChange method, onChange is going to equal change. I'm going to reclose that. And then up here, oh, not just change. It's going to be this.change. And since we're just passing that in, we're going to say this.change is equal to this.change.bind this, so we can make sure to get the correct this. And then we're going to go down, and we're going to do this the same thing here. Actually, we're going to want to pass in E. We're going to actually want to invoke it here. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this.bind this. I just do it as a habit. I always do this.bind this up here. But since we're doing a fat arrow function, you don't necessarily have to do that here. So we're going to take in this E. This is going to update our state. So we're going to go ahead and render this component. We're going to get rid of the auth component. We're going to say login, and we're going to do a login component. And we're going to go back to our React app. We're going to say login. And you can see now we have this email and a password, and we can type into them. So that's pretty cool. One thing we are going to want to do, we're going to say value is equal to this.state.email. And the value of this is going to be this.state.password. Again, we can check and we can see and make sure that we can type in. Now, for our submit, we are going to actually need to submit this up to our server. So this is going to be the first time we're talking to our server here. We're going to say submit E, and we're going to need to import Axios here because we're going to actually be making requests. So the first thing we're going to do is going to e.prevent default. Because what we're going to want to do is we don't want to reload the page when they make the submit. So we're going to say e.prevent default, and we're going to say axios.post, because we're going to post up. We're going to say /auth/get token. Email is going to be this.state.email. Password is going to be this.state.password. Now, I'm going to just assume that we've created users before, so we're not going to create a create page because I think that's unnecessary here. So after that, we're going to say .then. We're going to say LocalStorage .set item. We're going to call this cool JWT. That's going to be our JWT thing. And we're going to say res.data. Oh, I forgot to actually add the res. So this is going to be our result, and it's going to be a function. And this is going to be the result and the data we get back. And then after that, we're going to want to actually push into a new directory or a new route, but we don't have that yet. So we're not going to do that quite yet. But this should actually set our local storage. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this out. We're actually going to need to add the onSubmit to the actual form first. Now I'm going to add it up here as well. Awesome. So we can actually make this request now and see if we're hitting our server. But we're going to actually have to run both of them at the same time. So we're going to actually require some package.json work here. So we're going to do something, and I'm going to go to one of my other tabs. And you want to make sure that you're in the correct directory, because I am not in the correct directory at all. Wait a minute. I installed Axios and React Router DOM in my base. Wow. That's pretty sad. I was curious as to why I was mad. Oh, wow. I'm actually really curious that this worked, which is kind of funny. Anyway, we're going to actually install the packages in the right spot. And we're going to say React Router DOM and Axios. Oh, not Axios. Axios. That's a pretty big whoopsie. All right, so we're going to actually close this tab so we don't use it anymore. All right, cool. So this should actually have our, yeah, this actually has our scripts in now. Awesome. Now we actually have all of this from React Router DOM. It was pushing around no problems. I'm actually really, that's really funny to me that that happened that way. That there's no way I could have known. Anyway, we're going to move on, and we're going to actually install more packages in our base directory with our API in it. So we're going to cd ... and make sure that you're not in the client directory with a print working directory. So we're going to do npm install -- save, and we're going to do concurrently. Concurrently is going to allow us to run two separate applications at the same time. So now that we're here, we're going to go to our we're going to close the client, and we're going to go inside to our package.json here for the API. And we're going to say, instead of npm start, we're going to change this to, no, we'll leave it. We'll actually call it, get a new one, call it dev. We'll say concurrently. And then we do a backspace quote, and then we'll do npm run start, which is going to start the API. And we're going to do a close backslash there. And we're going to say npm -- prefix. And we're going to just say /client. And all that's going to say is that we want to run the prefix of client, and then we're going to run npm, and we actually want to do run start. So we'll give this a shot and see if we get any errors. So I'm going to open up my other tab, close this, cd back into the API, and we're going to do npm run dev. All right, that looks like it worked. So we have our login screen again, and we're going to just go to, localhost 5000 just to make sure that that one's running. And you can see that we have our 5000 and our 3000 running at the same time. So we are going to kind of see what we're going to do. So I have a user already in. I made it before the video, and it's just test and test. So I'm going to do email is test, password is test. Before I forget, I might be going fast, but we shouldn't do super bad practices around here, right? So we'll say that the login component, the password is not going to be of type text. It's going to be of type password. So that way you're not, displaying the password to the world. So we'll say test, test, and we don't have a submit button. Whoops. So we're just going to do a button, type equals submit, and we're just going to say submit. And we'll try this one last time. Submit. Oh, well, my one password is trying to get me to, create that, but that's really annoying. Anyway, we're going to go and we're going to see, do we have any errors? We didn't have any errors. Now, what we can go look at is the inspect, and I'm going to zoom this in for you guys here in a second. There we go. And we can see we have some console errors. Request failed with a status code of 404. After a little time of deliberation, I found out that we are actually requesting the wrong URL. We didn't host this at /auth/getToken. We just hosted /getToken. Getting a little ahead of myself here. So we should get rid of /auth. We refresh this. We say test. We say test. We submit. We have no errors. And in Chrome, I don't know where it is in Firefox. I don't really use Firefox that often. You can go to Application, and then you can go over here to LocalStorage. And you can see we have our cool JWT and we have our value. So now that we have that JWT, if we have that JWT, we are going to request up with anything that requires an authenticated request, and we're going to put that token in there. If we have that token and are making valid requests, we are logged in. So if I make a request and that token's bad, I should delete that token and redirect to login. So what we're going to do is we're going to go now into our authenticated component. Whenever this component mounts, we're going to get the user. So we're going to say component did mount. And then we're going to say const JWT is equal to, now we need to find a way to get the JWT in, an overarching way. So we're just actually going to create a new folder here and just call it helpers. And then we're going to just do and we're going to say JWT. Basically, it's going to be our JWT helper. So we're going to say const get JWT is equal to a function. And we're just going to say LocalStorage.get item. And we named it cool JWT. And then we're just going to return that. Now, don't forget that we're going to have to put bearer in front of all of these. So you could put bearer in front of it here, but I'm not going to do that because if I want the JWT, I just want the JWT. So we're going to say get JWT, and we're going to import get oh wait, I didn't export it. Whoops. So we're going to go back into our helpers, open up JWT, and instead of doing const, we're just actually going to say export const JWT. So now we can close this for real this time. And then we'll go in and we'll say get JWT. And we will import that. Oh, and we need to go up here and delete what I was doing before. So now we have our JWT. And then we're going to say if not JWT, we're going to say this.props dot history dot push, and we're going to do /login. Why are we going to do that? Because if we don't have a JWT, we're not logged in. That's pretty simple. Otherwise, we're going to say axios.get/get user, and we're going to put in headers. We're going to say headers. And we're going to say authorization. And then we're going to say, we're going to do double backticks for string interpolation. We're going to say bearer. And we're going to say we're going to say JWT. And then we're going to say .then res.set state. User is res.data. Oh, we didn't import Axios. I'm sorry. Axios from Axios. Hopefully you picked that up. And we're going to .catch. We're going to say error. And if we have an error, we're going to remove the JWT and just redirect them back to login. Now, this is a pretty bad catch-all because theoretically the server could have an issue and logging them out isn't necessarily going to fix their problem. But proof of concept, shorter video, not necessarily 100% right. So with that in mind, do note if you're creating a production level application, you're going to want to handle specific errors as opposed to just catch all and say redirect back to URL or back to login. So we're going to say this.props.history.push/login. Now that we've done that, let's try and kind of see and hit our authenticated component. Now, the way that authenticated component is going to work is we're going to actually render children here. So we're going to say this.props. Oop, I need to put curly braces around this. This.props.children. And we're going to need to put in a div. Cool. So we render this.props.children, but we don't want to render them if we're not authenticated. So we're going to say if state is undefined, that means that we haven't loaded the user yet. If the state.user is undefined. If the state.user is null or something else, if it's not undefined, that means that we have no user. So all we have to do is say if user is equal to undefined. Oh, this.state.user is undefined. We are going to just return a div with an h1 in it that says loading, because we're making the request and we're waiting to see, hey, do we have a user? Do we have a user? So what we're going to do is that's it, actually, because if the user is undefined, we're loading. Otherwise, we want to try and return this.props.children. If we don't have a valid JWT or we don't have a JWT at all, we're going to push this.props.login. Now, I forgot we need to catch the fact that we actually need to remove that item. So we'll say local storage.remove item, and we named it, I forgot again, cool JWT. Perfect. I believe that's it. So the way that I like to do auth components might not necessarily be the same way that everyone else does it, but you know, I like to have it to where my auth component wraps all my other components. So we're going to go to our app component, and I'm going to have route path is equal to /protected, and our component is going to equal, and we're just going to create a protected component here real quick, and it's just going to say I am super cool and protected. We're going to say import React from React. We're going to say const protected. And we're going to return h1 I am protected exclamation point. Export default protected. Close that. We don't need it anymore. And import protected. Now, we're going to cover authenticated component with this protected route. So we're going to go into authenticated component. We're going to set the state to undefined. The component didn't mount. We're going to make this request. But if the user, and then when we render, we're going to say, is the user undefined? If yes, we're just going to return loading, because that means that we haven't made this request yet. If it comes down and we don't have a JWT, we're going to push back to the login screen. If we do have a JWT, we're going to make this request. If we have an error, such as it sends us a 401 or something, or a 403, since we're logged, it's a forbidden and it's not good, we're going to remove the JWT we have, and then we're going to push in the login screen so they can log back in. So we're going to open up Google Chrome, and we're going to remove this cool JWT. And actually, we're going to do a cool one, and we're going to actually, in the login, we're going to redirect. So we're going to say, we're going to go to local storage, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to say this.props.history.push/protected. Now, I don't know. I think we're going to get some React router issues here, but we'll see. We're going to reload this page or say test, push, and cannot read the property push of undefined. Like I said, I thought this would happen. All this means is that we need to wrap our component in. Oh, we seem to not have a get user. I thought that we did. Maybe we don't. Oh, we don't. Huh. Well, let's create it now. I was mistaken. So we'll say app.get. We'll say /current. Let's say it's current user or /get user. We'll say passport.authenticate. JWT. Session is false. And we'll have a request, a result. And we'll just do res.send request.user. That's a simple one. I apologize. I thought we already had this, but we don't. So now we've got our request here. Let's try this again. And we're going to wrap our other request in React.router. So that way we can make sure whenever we do these pushes that they work. So we're going to say import with router from React router DOM, and we're just going to go to the bottom and say with router and wrap our authenticated component in that, and then that will inject this.props.history where we want it to go. So we can get the full workflow again. I'm actually going to erase our local storage. Oh, it actually cleared it for us. That's cool. So we'll say test test. We'll submit. Uh-oh. Well, we can see that it actually pushed us back. So we might have an issue with our structuring of our token. So we have headers, bearer, JWT. We go to /get_user. We get res.data. Now, one thing you might be thinking is, how would I debug this? I don't know what the request looks like. So what we can do to kind of debug this is we can go into our server and we can actually console log this out. We'll say get user, we'll say console.log request.headers. So that should have our headers on it, and we can make sure that our token looks right. So we'll go back into WebStorm, or back into Chrome. We'll say test, submit. I believe that we had an issue there, so we'll double check it. So you can see it pushes us right back, which means we're probably getting a 401. We're going to go here, and we're going to go look and see what headers we have. So we have our authorization header token. Let's copy this token and open up Postman, and we have a route. I believe, I'm going to double check. We have a route that says protected. So I'm going to put this inside a header of authorization. Oh, I'm not going to delete that one. I don't want to delete that one. We need that. We're going to say authorization. And we're going to just paste the value in. And we're going to send it. Oh, we don't want to send it to get token. We want to send, is it a get of protected? Send it. And I'm protected. So we have a valid token. Now you can see where this catch-22 I had, where we were just saying .catch and then blow it up or send it back. So we're going to actually remove that to help us debug. So we're going to say test, and we're going to submit. And we can see here that res.setState is not a function, which is correct. That is not a function. We're going to say this.setState. Or actually, we're going to undo all of our stuff. As you can tell, we do not actually want to do that catch all the time. But, you know, hey, I am protected. How cool is that? So we're going to do this again. So we're going to do application. We're going to go into local storage. We're going to clear our JWT. And we're going to refresh the protected page. And it redirects us to the login page. We say test, submit. And it goes straight to I am protected. And that's it. So you can see that we got our unauthorized on our initial request and we deleted the token. So if we delete the token, go to console, refresh, we're going to get the 401 unauthorized, and it's going to push us into our application. And we can do test, just a quadruple check to make sure this all worked. Bam. Now, I know that this video was kind of scatterbrained. I had some issues. I haven't been in this much lately, so it's good to get back into it. And I'm going to do a newer series. Most likely it's going to be less JavaScript, and it's going to be probably C#, and it's going to be more of solving actual problems. And I think that'll be kind of fun, because for me, doing this simple web-based stuff isn't super fun. But I'm basically just going to pick a problem and say, I'm going to talk through it and say, this is how I'm going to do it, and that kind of cool stuff. Now, I'm going to kind of end the video here, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you didn't, let me know. Tell me what I can improve on. I know a lot of you guys have had issues with my text sizes. I've tried to bump those up some here and here, and I zoom in whenever I can. So hopefully after I get less busy with my wedding and my personal stuff, you guys will see me a little bit more. But until then, I'll see you later.